Oh, oh wow. And how did that go from a product idea to development to Shark Tank?
So I had the idea and I fell in love with it, on the spot. So much so that that night I went back and I wrote the book. Before I had even a vision of what the character would look like, I wrote the book of the Mensch, and every night of Hanukkah, he's watching over the oil for the Maccabees. And they go to sleep and he can't believe that the oil's still lit. And then they wake up the next day and he teaches them something each day. So each of the 8 days he teaches about dreidels or latkes or prayers. Um, and I thought that was such a cool idea. So I was going to make one just for my son. And as I started thinking about more, I was like, maybe there's something here. Let's take it to Kickstarter. And this will be a little passion project for me. And we'll try and raise enough money to make the first batch. And we did. We raised $18,000. We sold about 300 dolls online. So I put up some of my own money as well, and we bought 1,000. So I had 700 extra Menches sitting in the basement. That Hanukkah came, and we kind of made it public, and they sold in 10 days. I mean, they just flew out. There was a clamor for Menches. And I got calls from some of the big stores, and Bed Bath & Beyond wanted it for the following year, and Target and Michael's. So I applied to Shark Tank, and by the time I went on, I had $750,000 in purchase orders in hand that I was in the process of filling. So that was kind of the origin of kind of before I walked down into Shark Tank.
And that's a really good segue to one of the questions that I had. So you were successful in Shark Tank. I think Kevin O'Leary on his YouTube channel has interviewed the person who screens everyone. And it's some crazy thing, like it's 1 in 1,000 people even get on the show. So, I mean, to get on the show and then to get the deal is an incredible accomplishment. And I saw he writes that there's 3 things that everyone who gets a deal has. They have a very quick elevator pitch, exactly what they do. They can sell themselves, and they know their numbers. So it sounds like you had all those, of course, but maybe you could just speak to that and talk about the whole Shark Tank experience.
Yeah, so first of all, my thinking going into Shark Tank was I wanted a deal. I wanted some power behind me as I went out there. I wanted some help with the PR, and I knew that the way they edit it, because it is entertainment, if you get a deal, you have a happy end to your story. And that means, you're kind of going to crescendo. If you don't get a deal, they can have you be the noble entrepreneur who walks away, or it could be a round and you crash and burn. And that sticks with you the rest of your career. So going in, I was like, I want a deal. I want to be fair. So I prepped. I mean, I watched every episode. I read all of their books. When I gave them their Menches and their Mensch books, they were personally inscribed with some personal story of how they had impacted me in some way, or tidbit about how I'd interacted with them in the past, and they didn't know it. I talked about Mark Cuban and what he had done that I found really inspirational, for example, or I talked to Barbara's family and how this was family oriented. And I also knew I was going to go on and guarantee my deal and put my house up and say, look, I will guarantee you'll get your money back within 3 years. And I felt pretty confident about that, knowing I didn't really need their money. I could take out loans if I needed to. So that was kind of my thought process going in. Kevin O'Leary was actually the nicest person to me. And had very interesting advice and said, look, I really respect what you've done. You've gotten this from the ground into some of the biggest stores. You've hit this niche. He was like, look, man, I don't see your vision for this to be a huge company. You should just keep doing what you're doing. You're going to pull $1 million out of this in the next few years. Enjoy that. Keep your day job, pull $1 million out, and keep going. And that wasn't bad advice. He was right to some degree. We haven't spun off and become a huge conglomerate of a company. I think we've lasted a lot longer than he thought, but he was very generous and very kind and respectful versus some of the companies I've seen go in there. And then to your point, I can sell the company in a couple sentences, the Jewish alternative to the elf on the shelf. I do know my numbers, and I think the whole conversation changed when I said I'd been at Hasbro Toys for 6 years, because I went from a crazy guy in a niche, funny business, right? And my product looks funny. I look funny, I'm like the short, chubby Jewish guy coming in all happy. So I think once they realized there was some substance there as well, it changed the conversation.
You mentioned something interesting. You said that Kevin's actually the really nice guy. So how much of the of what you see on TV is like, is the magic of TV, and how much is it like actually what happened?
So, I guess first of all, 100% of what happens is real, right? They had never seen my product before. I was in there reacting to them for the first time. I was sweating. I was in there for an hour, so there's obviously some editing going on between that hour. And, I was nervous. I would say my first half hour went pretty terribly. I was sweating a ton. They were poking holes in my business plan. And I think that's what they do. They want to see if you crumble or if you're going to be able to stand up and defend your business and when they're not there. So for me, it was all legitimate. Mark was tough on me. He didn't really love the idea for the first half. He came around in the second half. And Robert and Laurie saw something there. They made an offer. I didn't think it was a good offer, they 30%. So I guaranteed the payback and kind of compromised, brought them to 15%. And Barbara jumped in ready to make an offer. And I like Robert and Laurie a lot. I think Laurie's product background is just stellar. So I just turned to them and said, hey, respectfully, Barbara, I made them a counter offer. I want to hear what they say. Probably the wrong negotiating tactic, right? Because if I had more offers, I could pit them against each other. But I was hoping that was going to pressure them to take the offer, and it did. And we're still together. It's been 5 years, and I'm still with Robert and Laurie. I still love Robert and Laurie. We have a really good relationship that I'm one of their smaller businesses in the portfolio, and I'm pretty autonomous. I don't need the help. So I don't ask for it, and they don't put their nose in my day-to-day business. They have a million other things going on that they don't want to run a Jewish toy business. So, we talk, quarterly, and I'll say, hey, here's what's going on. When I have problems, I call them and say, hey, I might need some help on this. And that's what I try and do. I try and call in, one favor per year